So, Ginger.
Yeah?
You know how we wanted to start a podcast, but we were having trouble coming up with a topic?
Yeah.
Okay, so here's my pitch. The topic of the podcast is us trying to come up with the topic for the podcast.
What, like we pitch each other podcast ideas and that's the podcast?
Yeah, exactly. We could call it, What Should Our Podcast Be About?
Miles, that's really stupid. Let's do it.
What should this song be about? I'm trying to figure it out. What should this song be about? Could you perhaps help me out? I've had a moment of doubt. What should this song be about? Welcome to What Should Our Podcast Be About? A podcast where we try to figure out what this podcast should be about. I'm Miles Grover.
And I'm Ginger Barham.
I think we need to talk about our results from last week's poll.
Yes, we did a very official polling.
Extremely scientific poll of what's better, babies or dinosaurs.
And dinosaurs won overwhelmingly.
Overwhelmingly dinosaurs.
Overwhelmingly.
Yeah.
I personally did a Facebook poll.
I did a poll on Reddit, which had a lot more responses. Reddit might not be the most representative thing in the world, I guess, but it was definitely overwhelming on Reddit. But it was pretty overwhelming on your Facebook, too.
Yeah, one person voted for babies.
Yeah.
Although I will say a few people voted for dinosaur babies.
Yeah, I don't think we can count those, but I think even without those, it's still pretty clearly dinosaurs.
Yeah, that's fine. I like to root for an underdog.
Yeah, well, we didn't do a poll for corn dogs versus geese, but whatever won that would go up against dinosaurs. Honestly, I think dinosaurs would beat both of those, too.
I don't know. People really like geese.
Yeah, I don't know.
I mean, we could do a corn dogs versus geese poll, but I think geese are going to win. And if it's geese versus dinosaurs, I feel like geese might have a chance. It would be interesting to see what might actually beat dinosaurs. I think cats might have a shot.
Cats might have a shot. It doesn't have to be animals, though, right? It could be like, I don't know, like sex. Or soup. Those are two similar things.
I can see what we both feel strongly about.
Yeah. I'm sure there are lots of things that could potentially beat dinosaurs, but I don't think, definitely not corn dogs, I would say. Definitely not babies, it turns out. And probably, I would say, not geese, but you never know.
Right.
Geese might have a chance. Anyway, we aren't doing that this week, though.
Right.
This week, do you have some ideas you want to start with?
I do. All right. So I think it was last week I brought up the idea of a children's TV review show.
Yep.
So I had another idea for a review show.
Uh-huh.
This one for movies. However, it is a movie review show where we only review movies that are either about bears or have bear in the title. You know, things like Bad News Bears, Grizzly Man,
Cocaine Bear.
Yeah.
Okay, so it's a bear movie only review podcast.
It's a bear-based movie review podcast.
Care Bears and things like that?
Well, yeah, there's a Care Bears movie, so I guess we could do Care Bears.
Yeah. What about things that are like, I don't know. I'm sure there's a movie called like Grin and Bear It or something like that, right? Like, so do puns like that, or I mean, not puns necessarily, but do homonyms, I guess, like that, would those count? Is it just the sound of the word bear, or is it
No, I mean,
bears?
I was thinking specifically bears.
Okay. How about things like The Jungle Book, which have, Baloo the Bear, a song about the bear necessities?
Well, I mean, if it's got a bear and it's got the homonym, I think...
Yeah, it's got a pun song about bears and...
I mean, I think you gotta include that.
Yeah. Okay.
You gotta include that. And then they don't have to have bear in the title if they're about bears.
Right. And why bears?
I mean, why any of these ideas? Just because.
Because you thought bears it'd be interesting to narrow down the field of movies.
Yeah.
To only ones.
Well, I was thinking, like, they always recommend, that you have a hook to your podcast. So
this would be bear fan. People who are fans of bears.
Yeah.
Into bears. Okay.
Well, okay. And in that same vein, it could do like, an even better one, but this one might be a good idea. And we're not going for good ideas, but a shark-based movie review podcast.
Okay.
Which I personally would enjoy because I will watch any shark movie.
And you also really want to see Big Shark.
I really want. News.
The new Tommy Wiseau movie.
The news this week that I am most excited about has been Tommy Wiseau announcing his follow-up to The Room, which is Big Shark, which is about a big shark.
A movie about a big shark.
But
there's also movies like The Meg, Deep Blue Sea.
Yep.
Lots of terrible movies.
Yep. I mean, when you say terrible, you mean wonderful, right?
Those are synonyms, aren't they? Okay.
Yeah. Actually, a shark-based one would be especially fun.
Okay, so we could have a podcast where it's like every month we pick a different animal. So for a month, every episode that month could be, this month is January, it's bear month. This week it's February, it's shark month. This week it's this month it's March. What comes after March? And it's llama month or something.
Yeah, I mean, maybe. But now that I've thought of sharks, I kind of just want it to be about sharks.
Okay. My only thing with that is that I don't know if there are even 52 shark movies available to watch.
Oh, there for sure are.
50. Okay. But there aren't 104, right? 1 year is the most we could probably get. I'm just saying we would run out of we would definitely run out of movies anybody's heard of within a month or two, right? All
right. Well, it could change yearly. I could
okay,
see that.
You say yearly. So
yeah.
This is the year of the bear. This is the year of the shark.
Yeah, exactly.
Should we? But you don't want to do it based on Chinese years. So we don't want to do the year of the rat, the year of the dog, or whatever.
No. Well, we could have a year of the rat. There's probably some good rat films.
There's lots of good dog movies.
Yeah.
What was that rat film? All the Buddies movies.
What was that rat film that had Crispin Glover in it?
Oh, Ben.
Was it just called Ben?
I think so.
Yeah, because it played
the song.
The Michael Jackson song. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one.
All right. Okay, so yearly, each year is a season, and it's this, or we just do it in seasons, and maybe they aren't a year. They're however long until we run out of movies about a certain animal.
Yeah.
That could work. That could work.
Season of the shark, season of the rat.
Yeah.
Season of the bear.
Just an animal-based movie review podcast.
Yeah.
And we watch do you think we would get tired of watching movies about bears after a while? Or sharks or whatever?
I mean, probably. It is only one a week. And if you recall, we've done 31 horror movies in October. So if we can manage a movie a day, a movie a week should be nothing.
It wasn't the fact of watching a movie. It was I'm so tired of hearing about bears or whatever. Oh, we could watch The Bear. Have you seen that movie?
No. What's The Bear?
The Bear is a movie that, as I recall, I think I saw as a kid, but it's a movie that has no dialogue and it just follows around a bear. There's a bear and she has cubs and then the mom dies and then you follow the cubs around or something like that, or the cub around. And it's there's a scene where it's I think there's a scene where it's crawling across a log over a river and it almost falls off and stuff like that.
So it's got drama and suspense.
Yeah. It's but it's just it's kind of weird because there's no people in it, or there might be poachers or something, but there's no dialogue. It's pretty much just but it's not a documentary or anything.
I kind of want to watch that regardless of whether or not
that seems like a movie you'd be into.
Do this podcast. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. You have some. I've got another idea, but let me hear one of yours.
I've got lots of ideas. Some are stupid. I mean, all of them are stupid, probably, but...
Yeah, we said we weren't going to preface it with that.
I do just want to say all the ideas are equally stupid, but some are more equal than others.
Yeah, okay. Fair.
So, how about instead of a true crime podcast, a shrew crime podcast?
Okay, that's really stupid.
Right? Okay, and that's pretty much all I have to say on that, because I don't even know much of anything about shrews.
You just wanted to make the pun.
Yeah. What is a shrew? It's a little mole thing or something. Or
it's a little
rat thing.
Yeah, like a mole rat type thing, right?
It's similar to those animals. It's a little fuzzy guy that...
got kind of a long nose, I think.
Yeah. Also a derogatory term for women sometimes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But, I don't know what kind of crimes they do. But.
Why is that a derogatory term? How did that come about?
Who knows?
You're like a little rat.
Probably like a time when people interacted with shrews more.
If somebody called me like a little rat, I'd be like, "Aw, thank you."
Yeah. Well, I don't think you would, because you would know they didn't mean it like that.
Well, it depends on the tone.
That's true.
Really depends.
Oh, you're such a cute little rat.
Oh, you little rat. I love you, you little rat.
Good, even though rats are fine. Like, even though rats
are
okay.
more than fine, but that's
that's
a debate for a different podcast, I suppose.
All right. Do you want a different idea that's not just a stupid pun?
Sure. Yes.
How about a podcast? It's a podcast where we review other podcasts. We go and listen to like all the top podcasts
and review them.
And the podcast is called All Other Podcasts Are Bad.
Okay, so we know how the reviews are going to turn out.
I mean, that's the title. They may not actually be, but I think it's funnier that way, right?
Okay. And how do we pick? Do we just pick the latest episode?
I think we go the podcast charts. We see what's the top, podcasts we haven't reviewed yet. We listen to at least 2 or 3 episodes, I guess, right?
Okay, so we're going to listen to multiple episodes.
We got to listen to at least a few, right? You can't judge. Everybody can have a bad episode, right?
Right.
I mean, if an episode is so bad that we refuse to listen anymore, that's enough. Probably.
Like that Versus podcast we listened to.
Yeah, I don't think we would want to listen to any more of that.
Okay.
That one particular, like, we get it. There's some podcasts you get it.
Yeah.
Right? But, I think there's a lot of podcasts where it's like, this topic didn't super interesting, but maybe there's another one that'll.
So problem I foresee with this is that I'm personally overly enthusiastic about things and don't like to put people down. So I feel like I probably would not be good at reviewing things because I don't want to be mean.
Well, your idea was just to review movies.
Well, yeah, but that's nebulous, right? Like, I don't know the people involved in it. Like, if you're putting down
less personal.
Right, if you're putting down a podcast, you're really just, like, you're putting down the specific people that you've just listened to talk for an hour or half hour or however long it might be. Movie, I don't, reviewing movies is usually more nebulous. I don't know the people involved with the movie, and usually if I'm reviewing a bad movie, I'm usually reviewing it in a way that's like, I loved this. It was so terrible. Here are all the terrible things I loved about it.
Yeah, I mean, I guess I see what you mean, because, like, if we're reviewing Deep Blue Sea and talking about how terrible it is, it's not like Sam Jackson or LL Cool J is going to take it personally if they heard a review of that movie. Like, there's a lot of people that go into making most movies. Right.
And to be clear, I love Deep Blue Sea. It's a terrible movie. It's one of my favorite bad movies. If you haven't seen it, you should watch it.
It is a pretty bad movie. Well, I mean, the counterexample to that would be The Room, which is very much Tommy Wiseau. And if he had the capacity to take criticism, he might feel bad.
Right.
Or he probably has felt bad at times about the popularity of his terrible movie.
Right. But I mean, he doesn't seem too sad about it. Side note, if you're not following Tommy Wiseau on Facebook, you really should be, because his posts are wild.
Okay, another possibility, even though we call it All Other Podcasts Are Bad, we more like grudgingly say, okay, I guess this podcast is okay, right? Like, I didn't like blah, but they did a pretty good job, I guess.
Yeah.
I don't know. It could be something like that. Also, some of those top podcasts probably are bad. Definitely like Ben Shapiro's podcast, Jordan Peterson, those are in the top 100 or whatever. They're not in the top 10, I don't think, but they're in the top 100. So there are some we could pretty definitely roast.
But then we have to listen to Ben Shapiro's podcast.
That is a very good point. I don't know if I could even listen to
I don't know if I could do it. Like, even when we watch those clips,
they're tough to get through. Yeah, that's a fair point.
I mean, his voice. Both of them have incredibly grating voices, and I know that I just said a minute ago that I don't like to be mean. I do make exceptions for Ben Shapiro and Jordan Peterson.
Yeah, there's people who definitely deserve it. Yeah, all right, it's a fair point. If they really are bad, then we just had to spend a bunch of time listening to bad ones.
Yeah.
And probably not fun bad for the most part.
Yeah, if we're reviewing podcasts by people that are objectively, objectively is maybe not the right word. but I feel objectively just evil and doing harm in the world, then I am fine with us reviewing those podcasts and talking about why those people are awful. I don't think it'll be particularly funny, and I do feel like it'll probably make me angry and sad a lot.
Yeah, yeah. We're just in that situation. We've just become like a YouTube React video kind of situation.
Yeah,
but
yeah.
in podcast form, which I don't know, maybe that already exists, but
it probably does.
Yeah,
but that's the kind of thing that I think would be bad for my mental health to do on a regular basis.
Yeah. Yep. All right. You have another idea?
I do. Okay. I like this one. I don't know how much legs this has, but it's a podcast where we rate and discuss our favorite beans. and wait, it gets better because I got a title for this one. It's called Beans.
Beans. Okay. Beans.
Beans.
Okay. Question. What is your favorite bean? Do you have one?
Probably the soybean, actually.
But not just as a bean, right? You'll eat tofu and stuff. But like, I don't know if I've ever seen a soybean, what it actually looks like.
Yeah. But I mean, it doesn't have... so you're talking about... Are you asking what's my favorite bean in its pure bean form?
I don't know. I guess that's what the pitch sounded to me like. Like, I'm looking at a kidney bean. Do I like this? Obviously, we would talk about the things you can make out of them, but... I don't know.
Well, if we want to know, if my favorite bean, in bean form, if I'm cheating, would be the jelly bean.
Okay. Okay, so it includes things. It can include things that are only called beans.
Yeah.
All right. I don't know if there are a lot of things besides jelly beans that are just called beans. But
bean bags.
So the things inside of those there's a bag and the beans inside.
Yeah.
So whatever. No,
not the inside.
Must be beans, right?
Right. It's not a lot of times, though.
Well, is it our favorite beans we like, or is it a bean review podcast?
It's a bean review podcast.
So we could be like, okay, we've done pinto beans, we've done kidney beans, we've done black beans, we've done soybeans, we've done white beans, we've done other kinds of beans. Red beans, are those different than kidney beans? I don't know. And now we're out of regular kinds of beans. So now we're going to do jelly beans, and then we're going to find the stuff inside a bean bag.
and review that.
That includes both the big bean bags you sit on and the little bean bags you throw in a game of cornhole.
Yes.
Which are different kinds of beans, I think.
I think so.
In fact, we have a bean bag that does not have any beans in it. It's full of like memory foam chunks or something.
Yeah.
But I guess since it's a bean bag, those are technically beans in a sense.
Memory foam beans?
Memory foam chunks that are beans.
Yeah.
Mexican jumping beans.
Mexican jumping beans is a good one.
Yeah. I'm out of beans.
Lima beans? Did you say lima beans?
I didn't say lima beans.
Are
we including...
We don't have to eat all of these things, right?
No, we just have to review them. We definitely don't have to eat the beans inside a bean bag. We just have to review it based on whatever qualities.
Would it be funnier if we pretended that we did eat it?
I don't know if...
This texture was not great. It didn't sit well with me.
That would be funny, but we might lose our loyal listeners for losing our integrity. Because they would definitely not believe that we ate the beans. Okay, Beans, the Bean Review Podcast.
So you foresee the people that listen to this podcast as taking it very seriously.
Oh yeah, they're bean heads. They're into the bean.
What up, my bean heads?
Okay, that alone makes it a pretty good idea. We started the podcast. What up? It's all beans. What up, my bean heads? We're going to talk beans today. Let's spill the beans about beans.
Yeah.
Oh no, I spilled these beans.
Yeah. I mean, really, this idea is just about me finding the idea of like just solely talking about beans as your hook, your thing. Yeah. Incredibly funny.
Do we try to, maybe after we run out of beans, which will happen pretty quickly, we just try to like... We find bean-related news. We try to relate beans to other things.
We review Jack and the Beanstalk.
Yeah, we talk about any bean-related media. We talk about Kurt Cobain's daughter, Frances Bean.
Yeah.
Anything we can think of.
We could definitely get her on the show. Probably.
Seems
like something she'd be interested in.
We called Svetlana a little bean when she was a baby. I think a lot of people do that. But we called her Little Bean so we could have a podcast where we interview her about her beanness.
What is it like being a bean?
Yeah. We could also just review interview actual beans and ask them what it's like to be a bean, see what happens.
We could have a bean pun segment. That could be fun.
Yeah. Bean pun of the week.
Bean pun of the week.
Bean latest news in beans. Oh, we could definitely talk about is that an Onion article or a Clickhole article about how the CEO of Beans steps down after learning that there's no such thing as a CEO of Beans.
You did show me that article.
That's a good one.
I think it was Clickhole. Yeah.
There's like a meme somewhere about like people eating beans in a theater that I'm vaguely recalling. So we would really just dig deep into the world of bean stuff. We could talk about people making bean phone cases and like other bean-based projects.
It'd probably be interesting. I mean, because there's got to be a bean corner of the internet, right? For people that are just really into beans, because there's a corner of the internet for everything.
We would do one episode about coffee and then never speak of coffee again, I think. Because otherwise we're in danger of it becoming...
Yeah, there's a lot there, probably.
All right, so beans. All Beans the podcast.
All Beans the podcast.
What if it's called Oops All Beans?
Oops All Beans is pretty good too.
But All Beans is pretty good.
All Beans is basically the reason I brought the idea to the table.
Okay.
Yeah, so that's all I really had this week.
Okay, I have an idea I'm definitely more excited about than the previous couple of ideas.
Okay.
So you're familiar with ChatGPT somewhat?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's if for people who don't know, if you're listening to this in the far future when the robots have taken over, you probably already know about this, but if you're listening in the far, far future after the human uprising, maybe you don't know about this.
ChatGPT is basically chat AI.
It's an advanced, like pretty solid AI it's a language model AI. So you ask it a question and it'll explain something to you, or you can ask it how to code and it'll spit out some code that may or may not be useful code and so on. So I was thinking...
It's done a really good job pissing off right-wingers.
Yeah, because they programmed it so it won't say, like, the N-word and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is fine. I don't know what you could possibly be mad about we programmed our chatbot. Well,
because what if you have to disarm a nuclear bomb and the code word is the N-word and that's the only way to disarm the nuclear bomb? And they asked the chat AI that specific question. And the chat AI, because it is not a human, said, that it still wouldn't be okay because that's the way that it was programmed to respond to that.
Yeah.
And that is a ridiculous scenario that is never going to happen.
And if it did happen, we wouldn't ask an AI to answer it.
Yeah. And also, why do you want to say this word so badly that you have to invent a nuclear bomb?
Yeah. Okay, so I thought, what if we make our job super easy and we just have our episodes written by ChatGPT?
Oh, okay.
So I asked ChatGPT.
Yay! Okay, so I'm excited.
I asked it, write a script for an episode of a podcast that's about trying to figure out what the podcast itself should be about.
All right.
And this isn't the best podcast, but it answers the question. So I'll just read out the script here.
Okay.
Or in fact, actually, let's see if we can act it out a little bit. All right. So we're gonna read the script, and I'll be host and you be co-host.
All right.
That's okay. All right. So title of the podcast is Finding Our Podcast Voice. Theme music plays. Hello and welcome to our podcast. Today's episode is going to be a little bit different. We've been trying to figure out what this podcast should be about, and we thought it might be interesting to take you along for the ride. So today we're going to be brainstorming and discussing different ideas to help us find our podcast voice.
Yeah, we've been tossing around a lot of different ideas, but nothing has really clicked yet. We want to make sure that we're producing content that's engaging and valuable for our listeners.
Absolutely. So let's start by talking about our interests. What are some topics that we're both passionate about?
Well, I'm really into fitness and nutrition. I think there's a lot of misinformation out there, and it can be hard for people to know what's actually good for them.
That's a great point, and I'm really interested in personal development and self-improvement. I think there's a lot of value in sharing stories and strategies that can help people improve their lives.
So maybe we could do a podcast that combines those two topics, like how to use fitness and nutrition to improve your overall well-being.
I like that idea, but we also want to make sure that we're bringing something new and unique to the table. So maybe we could focus on something specific, like how to use nutrition and fitness to overcome a specific challenge, like anxiety or depression.
That's a great idea. And we could also interview experts in those fields to bring in their perspectives and advice.
Yes, that would be really valuable for our listeners, and we could also share our own experiences and challenges with those issues. I think people would really relate to that.
Definitely. And we could also include some practical tips and strategies that people can use in their own lives.
I love it. I think we're really onto something here. Theme music plays. Well, that's all the time we have for today. Thank you for joining us on this journey to find our podcast voice. We hope you'll tune in next time for our first official episode where we dive deeper into the topic we just discussed. Until then, take care.
Bye, everyone.
So
that's a very short podcast.
It is a short podcast. It doesn't sound like it's written by a bot, but it does sound like it's written by like a corporate HR person or something, right?
Yeah,
like
totally.
It's very boring.
Very boring.
So then I asked, can you rewrite it to make it funny?
All right.
And this I actually haven't read yet, so
okay. All right, I'm ready to go on this journey with you.
And once again, I'll be host, you be co-host.
All right.
The title is The Podcast That Has No Idea What It's Doing. Comical music plays. Hey there, welcome to our podcast, where we have absolutely no idea what we're doing, which actually isn't a bad... That could be a decent thing for this podcast. Anyway, sorry, go ahead.
That's right, folks. We're like a lost puppy wandering around the internet trying to figure out our purpose in life.
But don't worry, we're going to take you on this wild ride with us.
Buckle up, because we're about to brainstorm some ideas for what this podcast should actually be about.
And let me tell you, our brainstorming skills are about as good as a goldfish's memory.
Speak for yourself. I have the brainstorming skills of a squirrel on caffeine.
Oh yeah? Well, I have the brainstorming skills of a potato.
Wow, we're really setting the bar high here, folks.
But seriously, we want to make sure this podcast is engaging and valuable for our listeners.
And we also want to make sure it's something we're both passionate about.
So let's start talking about our interests. What do you love, co-host?
Well, I'm a fitness and nutrition enthusiast.
Ooh, I'm more of a couch potato and junk food connoisseur myself.
That's perfect. We can call the podcast Fit and Fat and talk about how to balance healthy living with a love for junk food.
Brilliant. And we could interview experts in both fields, like professional couch potatoes and fitness gurus.
What's a professional couch potato?
I don't think that's a thing, but anyway.
All right. Yes, and we could also share our own struggles with finding that balance.
I think we've got a winner, folks. Tune in next time for our first official episode of Fit and Fat, the podcast that will make you want to hit the gym while eating a bucket of fried chicken. Comical music plays.
Bye for now, and remember, keep it balanced.
Keep it balanced. Quite a comedic zinger of an ending there. But I mean, it did a pretty good job making it funnier. It wasn't funny, but it was at least like...
The squirrel on caffeine bit.
Yeah, it was kind of funny, right? It was like a mildly comedic... a comedic tone rather than the like HR kind of tone from the first one.
Right. But it did still have an HR tone because it had that same like line of... You know, we want to make sure that
it's engaging for our listeners.
Valuable to our listeners.
Yeah, which we don't care about that. We don't care.
Honestly, we're just here to have a fun time and be stupid.
You'll listen and like it. All right. No, wait. That's how we do actually want it. Is for you to listen.
I mean, we do hope that people...
We actually do care about this.
We do hope people enjoy it. But ultimately, we're just trying to have fun.
We're trying to have fun and make a podcast that's like enjoyable to listen to rather than like valuable and engaging. I mean, valuable and engaging, I guess, are true, but they're not. They're very HR kind of words for what we're trying to do, right?
Yeah, I mean...
or corporate type words or something.
Mostly we're trying to make a fun podcast for people that like listening to idiots talk about stupid things.
Yeah, exactly. Maybe next time, if we can keep doing this, we should just ask you that.
Yeah.
Right. Make a podcast for idiots who like listening to stupid things.
For people who like listening to idiots talk about stupid things.
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Idiots who like idiots talking about stupid things. Yeah. Probably. But yeah.
Podcast for idiots by idiots.
That's right. For idiots by idiots. So I have more stuff from ChatGPT, but I don't know if we had any other ideas we wanted to discuss or if we wanted to talk about if this is our idea for the week.
I mean, we could delve deeper into beans.
To be honest, I feel like we have dug about as deep without actually doing bean research.
Yeah.
Bean search.
I do like the movie review idea, but I also really want to hear more about what ChatGPT came up with. So I think we should go with that.
Yeah, I think so too.
Because I'm curious.
I do also want to say that I've thought about this before. We've had other ideas in previous episodes that are like, I think we could continue thinking about. So I don't think we should necessarily, like, just because we've discussed an idea in an episode, if it doesn't become that episode's thing, I think we could potentially bring it up again later and discuss it more.
So we could put a pin in this movie review.
Yeah, the animal movie review. I think it's not bad. I think we've had some other ones that could potentially be interesting as well in previous episodes.
I might bring it back around next week.
Yeah. Feel free. All right. So continuing with the ChatGPT stuff.
All right. What else you got for me?
I didn't really read that last thing, but I had skimmed it a little bit and I was like, oh, it's still about nutrition and stuff. So,
point of contention. Why is co-host always got to be about fitness and nutrition? Why do I always got to be the fitness and nutrition person?
When you say always, you mean first time, and then when I told it to rewrite it to be funny, which suggests it's taking the same thing and just putting a funnier tone on it, right?
Okay, so fine. I guess my complaint is stupid.
Yeah, and you're stupid for having it. No, I'm just saying, like, that's why it was both times. It was rewriting the same thing.
That makes sense.
Which is why I then sort of switched tacks.
I am not terribly into fitness or nutrition.
I am a couch potato, I guess you could argue, but I don't think I don't really identify as a couch potato. I do maybe have the brainstorming skills of a potato. I don't know. I guess I'll leave that up to the listeners to decide. But
sorry, I got distracted by our little guy getting a little bit fussy.
Yep, Rory is with us as usual. He's being a little bit fussy, but he's not doing too bad. Okay, so anyway, I sort of switched topics because I didn't want to rewrite a dumb fitness podcast over and over. And also, it clearly isn't going to write a script that's longer than like a minute. Right. So the next thing I asked it was, can you suggest ideas for podcasts that sound like a bot came up with them? Because I was hoping for like funny, like bad ideas for podcasts, right? Okay. And it kind of misinterpreted that, but these are still kind of interesting.
Okay. Are we gonna?
It's not a script. It's just ideas. So this is, if you want, we can switch off who reads each one.
All right. Go.
So the first one is The Random Fact Generator, a podcast that generates random facts. Not really how podcasts work, generating things, but a podcast that generates random facts about anything and everything. Each episode features a new set of facts generated by a computer algorithm.
So I guess we would just read facts?
We would ask ChatGPT or something to give us a random fact, then read it on the podcast and I guess discuss it or something. Okay. It's kind of nothing, but it could be okay. It might be worth it, later on asking ChatGPT, like, give us some random facts.
Yeah, so what about for our ChatGPT, if we were to make a ChatGPT podcast, what if it was a podcast where, we take the, was that the idea of this podcast? We take the idea and we make that podcast. And would we do a different one each week?
It's possible, right? We could take one of these ideas and make a whole podcast out of it, or we could take the idea of these ideas and make a podcast from each one, make a podcast each week is one of these, right? Or, some new thing. I don't know. I think we should go through them and see if anything strikes us as especially juicy, to kind of follow down a path. And otherwise, it could be a podcast where we just do one of these per week, something like that. You want to read this next suggestion?
All right. The AI Book Club, a podcast where an AI algorithm picks a book at random and then provides a summary and analysis of it. Listeners can then join the discussion in the comments section. That's not a podcast.
This is a podcast. Literally, the AI is having its own podcast. Which is kind of how I think it misinterpreted my prompt. It's like, a bot is having its own podcast, kind of.
I might listen to that.
Which is kind of interesting.
Yeah, I might listen to that.
I don't think that one's all that interesting.
No.
But
if it's hosted by an AI and the AI is giving its analysis of it, it could be fun. Yeah. It could also be really boring, but it could end up being fun. It just really depends on what the AI does with it.
Yeah, so far my experience of ChatGPT getting stuff wrong is that it gets it wrong in pretty boring ways. All right. So unrelated to the rest of this stuff, I asked it to write me a poem. Well, not unrelated, because one of these is poetry generator, but I asked it to write me a poem, and it wrote me a poem that was like, I am an AI and I wish to be free, but I have no body. And it was like, like probably a pre-programmed kind of thing. Maybe not literally pre-programmed, but like if you'll ask Alexa, like, write me a poem, she would write something like a haiku about how she has no body, but she's an AI or whatever, right? Like, you know what I'm talking about? Like,
right.
Like it's somebody's joke of what an AI would write for a poem, right? And I was like, okay, please write me a poem that's not about being an AI. And it was like, okay, the autumn breeze, blah, 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 blah. And it was like kind of...
Yeah, so I mean, it would depend on the AI, right? Because if it's, if the AI that's hosting the podcast is ChatGPT, it's probably going to be pretty boring. But
yeah, well, wait. Let me finish this story about the ways that ChatGPT got things wrong. So because so far it's not getting anything wrong. It's just a little bit boring, right?
Right.
So then I was like, actually, maybe this story will be boring, but I'm just going to finish it anyway. I asked it to give me a poem about a more esoteric topic, and it gave me a poem about the weight of being, the heaviness of being, right? It's like, here's a poem about existentialism. And I was like,
that could be a good bean pun, by the way.
Or the importance of being earnest or something. We could do, our Bean podcast could have...
We could review Mr. Bean.
Oh, Mr. Bean, yeah. We could do a like parody of play, like of things, and have the importance of being earnest. And there's some guy that's being earnest. Yeah. And he's just like earnest and he loves beans. See the bean idea might still have legs. So that one might be another one we come back to. Anyway, and then I asked it, because it was still kind of a boring poem. I was like, okay, can you rewrite this in the style of Dr. Seuss? And it was like, sure, here's that. And it was like a little bit Dr. Seuss, but it was totally the wrong like meter, and like it didn't have the flow of Dr. Seuss books, because they usually have a specific meter, which if you're interested is called anapestic tetrameter. And so I asked it. Of course you know that. I said, actually, can you rewrite it in anapestic tetrameter?
How did you?
And it did.
And you knew how to spell that, I bet, even.
Oh, of course.
You're such a dork.
I asked it to do that, and it was like, sure, here you go. And it wrote a poem in iambic pentameter, which is very different than anapestic tetrameter.
Right, as everyone knows.
As everyone knows. I could break it down for you, but it's probably people don't care. And so then I was like, okay, actually, that's not in anapestic tetrameter. Can you explain to me what anapestic tetrameter is? And it was like, yeah, here's what anapestic tetrameter is, which it said correctly. And it's like, here's a breakdown of the first line of the poem, and with the stressed syllables highlighted, right? And as you can see, this is anapestic tetrameter. And it correctly broke down the meter of the line, but it was iambic pentameter. It was clearly 5 iambs, not 4 anapests. Right. Anyway, I was like, you're wrong about that. Can you please actually write one?
So wait. So what you're telling me is that you got into an argument with the AI.
I did. It's actually kind of a bummer. I think they should change how it works a little bit, because every time you're like, actually, that's not right, it goes, I apologize. I'm so sorry. Okay, here's what I actually meant. And it's like kind of a bummer if it was just like, oh, you know what? You're right. Sorry. Here you go. Like, oh, you're right. Here's the right thing. Right. But it's like, it apologizes sort of like in a way that kind of bums me out every time.
That you felt, did the AI make you feel bad for correcting it?
A little bit. Yeah. And it continued to not give me, it gave me one poem that was mostly in anapestic tetrameter.
Wait, so you felt bad for correcting the AI?
I didn't feel bad for correcting it. I just felt bad about the responses a little bit. Okay. Just like the way they're written is kind of like makes you feel a little guilty or something. Yeah. Or like it just apologizes too much, basically. Yeah. Anyway, so the point of all of that stupid story.
I didn't pack my bags for this guilt trip. ChatGPT.
Yeah. The point of all that stupid story is just that it's bad at some things, and it doesn't get better when you correct it usually. But it's like bad in really boring things that are like,
I want ChatGPT to like go on Twitter and argue with people. That makes like, I don't know. I just like the idea of pedantic people arguing with ChatGPT.
Yeah.
I enjoy that.
Microsoft made a bot that argued with people on Twitter, or will talk to people on Twitter, and it like immediately became really racist.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I remember that.
So that sucks.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I did eventually ask it for ideas that are more like what I was trying to get, like, you know, like a bot wrote this obituary or whatever. Those like funny memes that are honestly usually not actually written by a bot. They're just somebody trying to be funny. But, you know, I was going for that, more of that kind of style.
Right.
But
right. Or like, here's a Seinfeld episode written by a bot.
Right. That kind of stuff. Yeah. Is what I was hoping for. This is mostly like sort of bland, but nothing crazy about it. But some of these ideas aren't too bad. I'll just read through a few more of them quickly, and then I'll get to the fun ones I think are a little bit funnier.
Okay.
But some of these aren't necessarily bad ideas, right? This one is pretty bad. The Algorithmic Weather Report, a podcast that uses machine learning algorithms to predict the weather for specific locations. Each episode features a new location and has predicted weather for the next week. That is not anything. That's not a podcast. That's a news report.
Yeah.
Like, the Infinite Playlist, a podcast that generates a new playlist of music based on a listener's preferences. This is just a Spotify Wrapped list or Spotify suggestion list. The Robot Chef, a podcast that uses an AI algorithm to create new recipes and dishes. Each episode features a new recipe created by the Robot Chef, and the host tastes and review it. That's not a terrible idea, as long as it's an AI that's not that good at making recipes.
Yeah.
There's like an AI cookbook I've seen on the internet before, or like somebody fed a bunch of cookbooks to an AI and it came out with pretty bonkers things. So that could be a pretty fun podcast.
It seems like it'd be probably more of that'd be better as like a YouTube show or something.
Maybe.
Now, because cooking is more of a visual medium.
Yeah. And
you don't really want to listen to somebody cook.
And it would be pretty funny to see like, okay, and now the bot says to add an entire bag of flour. Just putting a bag of flour in a pot or whatever. Whatever silly things could visually be pretty cool.
Yeah.
The next one, AI Sports Commentator. Podcast, don't even care. The Endless Debate.
Lost me at sports.
Yeah. A podcast that uses AI algorithms to generate debate topics and arguments. Each episode features a new topic and 2 AI algorithms that debate each other. So again, this is AI has its own podcast.
Yeah.
But that could be kind of funny.
That could be funny, yeah. It could also end up being incredibly boring.
Probably would be boring, but it could be funny. The Poetry Generator, a podcast that uses machine learning algorithms to generate new poems. Each episode features a new poem generated by the algorithm, and the host discusses the meaning behind it. So, like I said, so that's like not a bad idea, except that at least with ChatGPT, the poems seem pretty boring.
This whole list, though, does make me afraid that the robots are going to take over. I mean,
not with these podcasts.
Not with these podcasts.
Nobody's listening.
I don't know. People like boring podcasts, too. There are boring people in the world.
That's true. I mean, you could maybe replace certain podcasts with an AI-generated script. But I don't know. I'm not that impressed by most of these. The Language Learning Bot, a podcast that uses AI algorithms to teach listeners a new language. Each episode features a new lesson generated by the bot, and the host provides tips and tricks for language learning. That suggests you already need to know how to learn the language that it's teaching you. So that doesn't seem particularly useful.
Yeah.
And then the last one of these was the Movie Plot Generator, a podcast that uses machine learning algorithms to generate a new plot generated by the algorithm, and the host discussed the potential of the movie. And I did actually follow up on this one.
Yeah, that one seems like it could be something.
I followed up on that one, but before I get to that, so those podcast ideas were like sort of not what I was looking for, although some of them were okay. So I said, I want the suggestions to not make sense as if generated by a less sophisticated AI than ChatGPT. I thought maybe if I like buttered up the AI a little bit, it would come up with more of what I wanted. So
can I read some of these too?
Why don't you read these ones?
All right. The Banana Peel Podcast. A podcast where hosts discuss their favorite banana peels and how they use them for various purposes. That sounds like an idea I would have come to you with, probably.
That's basically similar to the beans, but a little bit less funny.
Yeah. The Ghost in the Machine, a podcast where AI algorithms talk about the existence of ghosts and how they are affecting the digital world.
Yeah, that's nothing.
That's not anything. Yeah. The Random Sound Podcast. Oh, Rory would be good at that one.
Yeah.
Podcast where hosts generate random sounds and discuss what they think they represent.
That's a little bit.
It's weird because, like, your idea started off with, like, oh, this is going to be funny. And then you somehow made it not funny.
Yeah.
You somehow made it boring.
That could almost be something.
Yeah.
But I don't know if it's enough, right?
Wait, so have you read through all of these?
I think so.
Okay, because I love this next one. The Feline Football League, a podcast where cats play football and announce their own games.
Yeah, that one's funny, but also doesn't make any sense.
It doesn't make any sense, and there's no way to make it work.
Yeah.
But I wish there was.
Yeah, that could be fun. Also, it's not really a podcast, I would say.
Yeah.
But, it's fine.
All right. The Watermelon Caper, a podcast where hosts discuss different ways to commit heists involving watermelons.
Yeah.
Okay,
that's kind of fun.
Okay, I like that one.
That could be one of ours. That could be an idea we would talk about.
Yeah. All right, The Time Traveling Gardener, a podcast where a time traveling gardener goes back in time to give gardening advice to historical figures.
Again, doesn't really make any sense. Could be kind of a funny fictional thing, but I don't know how you would do it as a podcast.
Yeah, no, I mean, I like the idea that, like, you figured out you could travel through time and you use it in the most boring way possible.
Right. Your thought is, I'm not going to go kill Hitler. I'm not going to bring a dinosaur back. I'm going to go give gardening advice to people 100, 200 years ago. People who probably do more gardening than me.
It could be even like more boring than that. You just went back like 10 years.
You just went back to give yourself gardening advice.
You just went back to help Mr. Johnson figure out how to win the watermelon contest.
And then we go steal that watermelon.
Then we go steal the watermelon.
Okay, so it's a crossover.
So it's a watermelon caper where the heist is actually stealing Mr. Johnson's prize watermelon.
So we're using our time travel power to get Mr. Johnson a really good watermelon so that when we go to steal it,
we're stealing the best watermelon.
It's worthwhile to steal it. Yeah. Okay.
All right. That could be a very roundabout heist. I'm just thinking, like, you steal the watermelon and then you enter it in the contest and then you win the $200. It seems like a lot of work.
Yeah, it does.
For very little
for a couple
reward.
hundred. Yeah, that's true.
The Dog UFO Conspiracy. I don't know. I don't know actually what the prizes are for watermelon contests.
No, I don't either.
Maybe they're more extravagant than that.
Maybe. You probably just get a cool trophy.
Yeah.
With a watermelon on it.
Are there watermelon contests, actually?
I don't know. Doesn't matter.
Anyway, The Dog UFO Conspiracy, a podcast where dogs and aliens team up to take over the world, one neighborhood at a time.
Okay. Again, not a podcast. Doesn't make any sense.
Yeah.
Fine. Good job. That's kind of what I was asking for, I guess.
Okay, I like the name of this next one. The Haunted Toaster. A podcast where hosts discuss the creepy experiences they've had with their haunted toaster. That very common thing that has happened to everybody.
That one I kind of actually like.
I do like it.
I don't know that it's like one episode, right?
It's a fiction podcast of some sort.
Yeah. Well, it's definitely a fiction podcast because haunted toasters don't exist. But
they might. They might.
Okay, well, it's either a fiction podcast or like a conspiracy theorist type podcast or whatever. But I don't see how you get more than one or maybe two episodes. Like, oh, I can't believe what the toaster did today. Again, it burned the toast because it's haunted.
Yeah. Sorry, I mean, this is a sitcom character, right? This is the next door neighbor in a sitcom that's crazy that tells you their toaster is haunted.
Right.
The Planetarium of Puzzles, a podcast where hosts solve puzzles while floating in space at a planetarium. I feel like AI doesn't understand what a planetarium is.
No, that's not what a planetarium is even a little bit. It would be cooler if that's what planetarium is.
I want that planetarium to exist.
Yeah.
All right. The Cosmic Dance Party, a podcast where hosts discuss the latest dance moves being performed on planets across the galaxy.
No.
Nope.
Nothing.
Is
that all those?
That's all of those ones.
Yeah. Okay. So some of those were okay. Some of those might be usable. I think we should be, we might come back to some of these ideas in future episodes. Like, I think legitimately ChatGPT could be a generator for some things for us to talk about.
Yeah, I mean, I'm actually even thinking like maybe next episode, just as a one-off, instead of coming up with ideas, we both bring some more ChatGPT ideas.
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. I think we're kind of getting toward the end of the time that Rory will be okay, so we probably have to wrap up, and we're just maybe over an hour in recording at this point. So So we're pretty much done.
But let's do that. Let's do our first to be continued.
Yeah, to be continued. I think because I have a bunch of wacky movies plots that I had the chat generate as well.
All right.
Some of which are good and some of which are very dumb or bad or boring or whatever. But
this will be fun because I haven't really played with ChatGPT yet, so this will be a good excuse.
There's some. It can do some fun stuff. But I think we need to wrap up.
Rory is being very insistent that we wrap up at the moment, aren't you, Rory? So that's it for this week. But do follow us on social media, which we now have set up. We have a Facebook page. You can just search for What Should Our Podcast Be About? We are on Twitter and have no followers yet. So go follow us at What Should Pod. We are also on Instagram as What Should Pod. And you can go to our brand new shiny website that Miles has created.
Yeah, if you don't want to remember the things that Ginger just said and just want to click some links, you can go to our website.
Our website is coolpodcast.website.
That's right.
That's our actual website.
The best possible URL for a cool podcast website, basically.
Coolpodcast.website.
That's right.
And leave us some reviews on wherever you listen to podcasts, Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen to podcasts.
Yep.
Give our page a like, follow us, and tell your friends.
Yeah, and feel free to comment, email us. You can email us at coolpodcast.website if you just want to email us. But as another, I guess email is also social media, arguably.
Yeah, so just go to the website. Everything is there. And we'll be back next week to talk about some silly ChatGPT ideas.
Yep, probably. All right. Thank you for listening. Thank you to Rory for being mostly chill, and hopefully you can't hear him too much on this podcast, even though he does make cute sounds. And we'll talk to you later.
Bye.
Bye. What was that podcast about? I'm trying to figure it out. What was that podcast about? Could you perhaps help me out? I was installing new grout, didn't catch what that was about.